What's up, Marvel fans? I'm Steven from the Hills Maniacs, and today I'm going to be putting on my detective hat and combing through all of the evidence I've been given as I try to predict the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, if you've been watching the MCU since the beginning, like I have, a lot has happened, and a lot more has been announced for the future. We've been through three phases of the MCU so far. It all started with the first Iron Man movie, all the way back in 2008. Which feels like a lifetime ago at this point. It started with that and has since exploded into a huge franchise that everyone can enjoy. There's been fantastic like writing and character work. Some of the movies in it maybe we could have done without or whatever, but um, as a whole, though, the MCU has been an incredible journey so far, and I feel like we're only scratching the surface, honestly, because the way that they are building up everything that is to come later on in the future, I think is working really well. They're using the Disney Plus shows and everything to build up the future as well as connect to the next movies that are coming up as well. You got like WandaVision is connecting to Doctor Strange 2. She might be the villain of that. She's combing through what will be the multiverse now. So we're getting into that multiversal territory, which I'm excited for because this is the potential to bring in a lot of new heroes and villains. We could get the mutants in there now. We can get maybe even other versions of the characters we've already seen, like a different Iron Man played by a different actor, and that could be the way to keep these characters around in a way that's explained within, the movie and everything else. Specifically, though, today I'm going to be talking about basically the next villains that they seem to be building up for either the next Avengers movie or maybe a couple down the road, which in this case would include Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who we've seen twice so far in the MCU. At the start of Phase 4, she showed up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as well as the end credits of Black Widow. There's a spoiler for that if you haven't seen that yet. Go check out our video from last week where we talked about what exactly we think her plan is. They're building her up as well as Kang the Conqueror. If you saw, if you've been watching the Loki series, here's a spoiler for that as well. Kang is in that, or a variant of Kang that created the Time Variance Authority and has been keeping track of the proper flow of time, or the sacred timeline as they call it, to keep other versions of himself from getting out because they're worse than he is. Like, this guy was just kind of like a funny man, basically. He was just a normal, like, person, essentially, at the end of time, trying to make sure that an even worse Kang didn't get out. So that's what Marvel's been focusing on, these two villains, but are they actually going to be connected in some way? Is Val like also connected to Kang through maybe she's a leader of the TVA in some alternate timeline or something like that? That's what I'm going to be looking at today. So first of all, let's talk about what exactly Val is doing. We mentioned this briefly in our last video, but I think as of right now we can tell she is trying to form a group of probably what will be known as the Dark Avengers, a group of people who have a reason to hate the Avengers or want the Avengers dead. You have John Walker, whose friend was killed by one of the Flag Smashers in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. And, Falcon got in the way of him trying to kill her, essentially, because he was trying, Falcon is the new Captain America, so he was trying to stop him. And then Val approached John Walker in the last episode of the series and basically gave him a new suit and called him U.S. Agent. So he's like her Captain America of this group that she's founding. And then she approached Yelena Belova at the end of Black Widow and tried to convince her that Hawkeye, Clint Barton, killed Black Widow, which would be her sister. Which we know that's not true. If you saw Avengers Endgame, she sacrificed herself to get the Soul Stone. in one of the scenes, and Hawkeye was holding her, and she like made him let her go and things like that. So we know that he didn't kill her, but Yelena is, Val is using Yelena to think that she did, that he did kill Black Widow, and that's going to be her motivation. Now, we will be doing a video at some point on who else we think Val is going to be recruiting, but in terms of whether or not she might be connected to Kang being the big bad villain in some way, I don't think she is. I think what Marvel is doing, and doing very well right now, is building up two different villains for the next two Avengers movies, or even Kang might be a little bit further down the line. I think that Val will be well, not necessarily Val, but her group, the Dark Avengers, I'm just going to call them, will be the villains of Avengers 5. And I think they will take on the more earthly, the more Earth-based Avengers like Falcon and Captain Falcon, Falcon America, if you will, the new Captain America, Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes. You have whoever the new Black Panther will be. Spider-Man maybe could be involved in that. Like, just the Earth people, not like the people who deal with cosmic threats like Doctor Strange or Captain Marvel or the Guardians. I think Val's group, the Dark Avengers, are going to be the villains that take on these Earth-based Avengers. And I feel like it's kind of like, this is going to be like the filler feud, if you will, or the filler villain group as we push toward getting to Kang. It's going to be like what Ultron was. Like, it was just they needed another Avengers movie to sort of bring the characters together again, but also cause a rift between them a little bit, start to build that wedge between the Avengers, because Tony built, built Ultron and everything else, and that caused them all to argue with each other. I think that's what this is going to be. Avengers 5 will be all about Val and the Dark Avengers, and the Avengers trying to avenge each other, or like maybe some of them are going to be killed. Like maybe Clint Barton actually does get killed, and that's what the Hawkeye series is going to revolve around. Kate Bishop trying to avenge him, and maybe this will even lead to the Young Avengers taking on the Dark Avengers or something like that. I'd be interested in seeing that as well, because the wheels are turning on all of these things. They've set up the Young Avengers. We've seen, or we'll be seeing Kate Bishop. We've seen Scott Lang's daughter so far. We have Iron Man's daughter. I don't know if she's going to be one of the Young Avengers quite yet. She's still pretty young, I think. We have Wanda Maximoff's twins, who will probably be coming back after the events of Doctor Strange 2. They were in WandaVision, but they were kind of like just created from her. They weren't really like, they didn't really exist yet. They were part of her hex and things like that. But she's looking through the multiverse to find a version of them that does exist that she can bring back. They're part of the team in the comics. There's also Iron Lad. I think there's going to be a series with him as well. But it does seem like they are setting up the Young Avengers, and maybe that's what they're going to do. They're going to have the older Avengers are now being killed off because of Val's group, and now the Young Avengers have to avenge them. And then, as we go through the MCU, maybe there will be one more Avengers movie in between there. Maybe that's where the Young Avengers come in. It'll be a movie for them. And then we get to the biggest one, the big Thanos level crossover with the Guardians and the Avengers and all that stuff, where every group of Avengers assembles again to take on Kang and whatever army he might have. Maybe it's an army of Kangs or whatever. I just like that the version of Kang that we saw in Loki, in the final episode of Loki, is more just like the most, like, basically dumbed down version of Kang you could get. And he knows that there's worse versions of himself out there that just want to conquer different universes. And now that he's been killed, there's nobody to control to stop these other Kangs from coming out, and now they're going to be released. We know Kang is going to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, so something's going to happen there where a version of Kang is released. This might not even still be the worst version, because I think what they're doing, they're planting the seeds for like the worst version of Kang to come. And I think, like, at least maybe I don't know if the next time we see Kang is going to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, or if we'll see him again in various forms, before that in some of the other shows. Maybe he'll be cameos in some of the other movies. Like Thanos was at the end of, both Avengers Age of Ultron and the first Avengers movie. So that could be how, even just through end credit scenes and things like that, that could be how they build up Kang. And even if Ant-Man and the Wasp are able to defeat this Kang, that doesn't mean that that's the, like the prime Kang or whatever. I think they're doing an excellent job at building up, Kang as the next big villain, because it has to do with time travel and all that stuff. And essentially the Avengers are causing this because they allowed Loki to escape with the Tesseract, which, unfolded all of the events in the Loki series, which led to Kang being released, essentially. So basically the Avengers are responsible for this in a way. I mean, if you look at it like that, but I think it would be interesting to see Kang pop up a few more times in the MCU before we get to the biggest or worst, the biggest and baddest version of him that the Avengers will have to face. And I think they're laying the groundwork for that, like, perfectly, while also building us toward Val and the Dark Avengers in what I think will be the next Avengers movie, Avengers 5. So that's my look at what I think is going to be happening in the future of the MCU. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. And if you're a Marvel fan, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Every Saturday we put up Marvel content. So if you're a Marvel fan, check out our channel every Saturday, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.
Subscribe.